11 extends from 3 minutes 15 seconds to 12 minutes 13 seconds east by Quinian's compass in the equatorial regions of the Meriasek. A displaced clade, whom their descendants termed the first series, crossed the seas of ignorance, ignoring 10 islands, each of which was somehow imperfect, to round that point of the globe where the small mountains of 11 protruded happily atop a ridge of the old volcano range. Some say the first series brought mathematics, the only memory of old Earth, to form the crucible of the Utopia's founding. Certainly, it is the centrality of this discipline that distinguishes 11 from other entries in the great encyclopedia. People on 11 believe that the clarity of their night sky, coupled with the climate that allows them to go about comfortably yet discreetly naked, has done away with the problems of the old Earth altogether. In the daytime, extreme heat forces islanders to take to the shade and sleep. So it is that 11 comes alive by night. The curator writes the following: not suffering the delusion of the Terran day, which places that illusionary blue-domed world of dream like a dance cap over the mind of daylight man, the Elevanians perceive the universe as it is, night-bound, illuminated only by the night of reason. It is a fact of common sense to Elevanians that the universe and they themselves are holograms. They have no need for proactive technology. They understand they are space travelers upon Earth, traveling faster through the universe, relatively speaking, than any craft built by any human. Every night, when their ship's outer protective skin becomes perfectly transparent, they awaken to pure discovery. With eyes evolved to stargaze, there is no end to what an Elevanian might observe in a lifetime. vision extends beyond the capability of their organs. Quick storms distinguish the weather patterns, often discharging violent bolts of lightning. The islanders, who ordinarily have no real use for electricity, have built conduits that transfer this bonus power into the great dish atop Mount Noises to blast its current radio observations in photons onto the surface of Telescope Pond. The depths of the universe are printed by the flash into ocular organs of the rejoicing populace, lingering for hours against their closed eyelids. It's noteworthy, writes the curator, that choke holes and other precarious chasms are the main cause of death known on 11, as the stargazing inhabitants are constantly going about with their heads in the clouds. When an Elvenian approaches a possible lover with an equation such as 1 plus 2x equals y, the presence of the variables is meant to initiate a sequence of potential calculations. If the interlocutor replies with an equation suggesting a larger value for x than y, for instance, x1 equals 2y, it is taken as rejection. If the willingness to become a point is suggested, x, y, a marriage is proposed. If an equation is traced, depending on the slopes of selected tangents to the asymptotic, it is taken as a direct sexual proposition. The principle of possible abandonment, necessary to any utopia, is well maintained on 11. At any time, one may leave the island in a boat.
Hiva designates a conglomeration of islands and infinitesimals, the so-called Society Islands, positioned 23 degrees 2 minutes, 158 degrees 5 minutes, 32 by 20 by Quinian's compass, in the northern hemisphere. Like most such atolls, is volcanic and coral in origin, and resides just 4 meters above sea level at its highest point. The Society Islands span some 600 kilometers from north to south. A plethora of habitable islands appear atop shards of compressed and complicated crags, surrounding various lagoons of warm, still waters. Below surface, the arches of stone and clear ether give the impression of a magnificent cathedral of sublime, literally unfathomable dimension. In the rim, the geology is distinguished by outcrops of obsidian whose encounters with lava and boiling water have left it folded, pressed, and uncannily similar to the petrified skin of an impossibly ancient body. The surface ecosystem is dominated by castaway species of other islands and lost continents. Humans, pigs, dogs, water rats, resurgent woods, and highly evolved modularly self-replicating plastics are prevalent. Life in the island, in the water and the air, is so peculiar and abundant, so ever-evolving, that it is impossible to generalize upon. Of the multitudinous society fauna, the most singular member is the Tridunculus strigirostris, a cyclopean ground pigeon of iridescent greenish-black and bright pink plumage. Principal human settlements are to be found upon 13 haven islets, forming a slightly curved chain from west by north to east by south as follows: Funa Funa, Hello, Aploon, Freehold, Nut, Tau, Tree Hut, Flambeau, Off, Sanga, Father Brown, and Anus Isle, a stink swamp islet 70 miles east of its nearest neighbor, rich in natural gas and dingleberries. Life on the islands can be described by the constant possibility of change. Culture has evolved through storytelling, kept alive by narrators who promote the problem of will as the centerpiece of individual experience. Variation, eccentricity, and difference are so regular as to demand from each individual either the capacity or the refusal to change. The Society Islands are remarkable for their luxuriance and beauty. Tree ferns, creepers, and parasites. Evolutions of the cocoa palm and the breadfruit are plentiful. Fish and coconut are predominant sources of food. Small, highly individual structures, or flotties, stand on stilts over multicolored flotillas of plastic. There are signs of sporadic discoveries suggesting a previous civilization of which memory is lost. There is an imperial governor, having under him a high chief assisted by a high council. These functionaries are elected yearly by popular hand vote in Nut Harbor. Only the minority interested in such things participates. Unless an island is threatened by war or foreign invasions, which are rare occurrences, the government's function is limited and its role chiefly symbolic. It serves one important function in the local life. The previous curator writes, "The empire draws a particularly difficult minority of the population into its clubby complexities, those inclined toward bureaucracy and social climbing, where their personal perversions will do the least damage. Its debaucheries tend to inspire energetic, subversive counterculture, defined by trade economy, love of gold, hunting, exploration, and piracy." The Society Islands offer dizzying possibilities for social organization. Remote communist settlements compete with feudal lords, all at the mercy of pirate bands, silver-tongued strangers, and an effete central authority. The islanders are of a particularly healthy and well-adapted physique. They tend to be of a dark green color, splendidly formed, with handsome regular features, their average height about 2 meters. They enjoy a personal life of hot climate and relaxed social regulations, and often spend their days narrating the adventures of themselves or others. Life on the Society Islands is particularly novelistic. Though one might be raised according to the most bizarre superstitions, as soon as one can sail, one is free to ride the wind, to inscribe one's experience on the ever-changing world and let its changes write anew upon the slate of the mind. The situation at Hiva is peculiarly interesting concerning the nature of the islands and whether they constitute a foundational paradox in our great encyclopedia. It is an island that is convenient to the implementation of a utopian model, but it is also an island that is proportionally inconvenient for the upkeep and continuation of the utopia. An islander is self-consciously aware of the possibility of other islands and the limitations of his world. Everywhere, new utopias are possible. On Hiva, suicide is the normal way of death. Any other extinguishing is considered unlucky. It is by the choosing of the moment and method of death that the individual seals the conclusion to the epic narrative of their life and offers the key to its retelling.
Senashima, the only island in that swathe of remnants 13 minutes 4 seconds, 1 minute 10 seconds, by Quinian's compass, ever submitted to the great encyclopedia. Apparently, the entire region was thought to be uninhabitable during both epochs of the Lowi and since. It is not known to this day whether the correspondent, one Tadashi Harai, ever really existed. Harai's submission was recovered in its canister off Eccles Brow by a librarian of the 13th Quaternional. It had been floating for some 400 years. Agents report that the island does exist to this day, with many of the surface features the self-professed madman described. The island is still distinguished by its great sea wall, the feature that helped it survive the millennia with its ruins of ruins available to Harai's project. Architectural erections such as Harai describes them, gridded with the decay of hollow geometric dreams, still define its skull-like face. Despite the archaeological complications, the surface still yields signs of past exploitation. Coal is in its veins and crosses to the other islands in the region beneath the sea. We can presume then that Harai's claim of a tunnel world of endless mystery and improbable complication is possible beneath the dead plateaus of the emergence. Harai's utopia is dependent on many of the central categories. It is an island encountered by chance. Harai, a submariner and sole survivor from a now forgotten conflict, was cast away on its shores at the age of 43, ringed with quasi-pelagistic seaweed, boasting a soil rich with the fertilization of dead generations and their sewage. He found protein enough for survival, without influencing the inhabitant to decadence. The utopia is anti-human in the sense that Harai is its sole inhabitant, but it is humanist in that it is in the human history of its architecture and physical development that Harai chases his ideal state. We include Kanzenashima Island as exemplary utopia, the curator writes, because of, not in spite of, its being entangled with what other disciplines have labeled mental illness. It is in the great state this madman has founded that we have finally located its hope. Here the curator quotes Harai's account at length. Utopia is, by definition, no place. It can only be approached, never reached. Utopia cannot be in the future, nor can it be known in the present. Utopia is the past, not the past as a golden age, but the past as ruins of its own ruins, unrepeatable, whose recreation can come about with a reverse of temporal flow tempered by thermodynamics to an entropy. Entropy moving backwards against itself. We see its promise. We harness time to erect our utopia. Ruins of ruins, tending so soon to dust. We labor in the warm days to piece them back together, and on the cold and howling days new holes are bored into the face of the past. We return and rebuild another possible articulation, great doors to wealth and freedom out of the walls of what once tended to the cage. We have diamond, tunnels of it sparkling beneath the sea. We have diamond to cut the diamond, and we can fuse the ancient concrete into more than it might have been. The diamond, when our reflectors have brought the sun deep into the bowels of my island, splinters us multitudinous. We are our own visitors and ghosts, and illuminate where we've made a view. We see strange footprint most days, alone on our cherished island. We sift through remnants and crystallize strange memories from their heaps. Memories of what has not yet been, but what might still have been. Change is constant here, and soon enough we swim against it, alone and in society, as the miraculously ever-crumbling concrete presumes it. We are not divided from nature on our rigid island. As we work to undo our undoing, make of it what it almost dreamed of being, we approach the sparkling kingdom of coal-baked diamond and insect flesh cakes, of solitude and company, of paradox lived among, not held at distance. We survive among elements of our own demise. A king's word is our command. Our freedom is to control that word. We love and hate in the purity of true self-knowledge. We believe and exchange, our stone and sand visage with the inscripted signs that come, as they do from time, lapping up on our walled shores and inevitably breaking. Our diamond locates the traces of the sounds that once bounced through our sun-raped interiors, and we converse with those who know not what we are. We know nothing of you in your dreams, but we know they are not our own. We are beyond death, for we are already ghosts, and we live even now against the skeleton of our emergence into your past by these undeniable and adamant words.
perhaps unusual to consider a civilization whose stone boulevards are lined with drains for the easy dispersal of blood a utopia, but the curator solicits such status for this island. Somerset is the common name for the largest island at the westward reaches of the proliferation of islands that arose after the Fourth Great Flood epoch. It extends from 51 minutes 26 seconds to 55 minutes 21 seconds west by Quinian's compass. It is called Somerset by default, usually going under other names, so zealous are its politicians. Historically, Somerset is distinguished by its fervent political culture. It is a civilization that can be said to exist always in a state of imminent, occurring, or just suppressed revolution. Somerset is divided territorially into one province, the Somerset Basin, and 32 promontories: Ballyhister, Van Hoe, Cavan, Milburn Port, Hippolyte, Fermanagh, Stilburn, Cannes, Hoplite, Fairport, Zeed, Frilm, Leith, Loth, Velman's Land, Cronulla, Milton, Waxford, Fenner's Freehold, Gull's Neck, Pillow, Roden, Slanland, Munster, Clearport, Kent, Gellow, Ironville, Yillix, Ulysses, John's Landing, and Indian Queens. Legend has it that 4 trunks, residue of 4 separate catastrophes in a great storm, washed up on 4 of the promontories on the same day. In each trunk there was a human baby and a single book. These were Trotsky's The Permanent Revolution, Rousseau's Confessions, Zitsko's No Frontier, and Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Woman. Every promontory believes itself at one time or another descended from one of the 4 babies. There is no religion on Somerset except when it arrives via castaway, and then it is always quickly extinguished. Dictators, kings, bards are variously worshipped, but only for show. Political strife keeps the population maintainable. At the age of 42, all men and women are expected to run into battle, axe in hand, and sacrifice their lives for a dream. They may live for years after, but in battle the elderly are the only ones who risk their lives. To young people fall the duties of day-to-day administration, politics, and power. unjaded by experience, they are ever rash, guided by flair, sexuality, ambition, and courage. War varies. In some periods it is full of pageantry and glory, in others constituted by competitions of rugged survival and bitter terrorism. There is no sulfur, so guns are not possible. Fortifications limit slaughter. Engagements are often reduced to sporting events, with only 1 or 2 deaths reported, or feigned afterwards. In any event, after any large fight, the slain are eaten by the survivors in large banquets and celebrations. High and low cultures intertwine deeply in all levels of society, in the very midst of revolutionary chaos. Though there is mica aplenty on the rocky portions of the island, there is not a pane of glass in the land, so apt in the continual upheaval is it to be smashed. The unpredictability of weather and the reluctance to build forces a rugged hardiness as the overriding characteristic of all its human inhabitants. One of the paradoxes wound into the idea of utopia that it must fulfill simultaneously the ideal for both the state and the individual. Usually, the former necessity proves its undoing. No utopia is a prison. So it is said that from time to time, older individuals build rudimentary vessels with papyrus bark and skin and sail away never to be seen again. No one hinders them. One man's chopping block is another man's guillotine. My vision of a properly functioning society and my own role in it may not accord with your own, especially if your clade hails from a different alliance than mine. But how splendid if they do accord, across clades, tasting change on the air. If brothers, sisters, and citizens find one another amid the chaos of history and make a stand together, the state they make will spontaneously develop around them, and for that moment the whole world is their own. Then, axe in the air, the blood of a bureaucrat still fresh spattered on my cheek, I am fully strong, fully young, fully free, a veritable